Okay, and then Lyle or Chase, if you want to hit next slide. We just want to make everyone aware that under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and related statutes, that the city of Tempe shall not discriminate on grounds of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, and age, be excluded from participation in, denied benefits of, or subjected to discrimination under any federally funded program or activity it administers. And we do have the contact information there if anyone feels that they have been aggrieved by this. And this is part of our federal funding for the project from our Federal Highway Administration group. And so then we'll go ahead and kick off the meeting. And I'm now going to turn it over to Lyle with our transportation planning group.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. This is the Kyrene Roosevelt Farmer Bike Ped Improvement Project, round 1 of public meetings. Next slide. So first wanted to start with the project history. The project was originally identified in the General Plan and Transportation Master Plan. Some of you may have heard before, it was called the North-South Rail Spur Project. It was intended as an off-street path adjacent to the Union Pacific Railroad. The city continued discussions with Union Pacific trying to make the path happen. However, we were not able to acquire the necessary easements for that alignment, shown in red on the map over there. So due to that and high capital costs and annual maintenance fees shown in that table below, we presented multiple alternative alignments to the city council, and they have approved this new alignment. It's the same general alignment as before, just a quarter mile west on Roosevelt Street instead of down the railroad, shown in the purple there. Next slide. So here's a general overview of the area that this project is covering. It starts at University and Farmer on the north end, goes down to 13th Street, and that's where it jogs over to Roosevelt, continues through Broadway and Southern. Below Southern, it will cut through Dwight Park to Manhattan Drive, and through there we'll go back to the original alignment on Kyrene Road. And the southern end of Kyrene, when it hits baseline, will connect into the Kiwanis Park and Western Canal Path. The proposed improvements include protected and buffered bike lanes, a two-way cycle track on Kyrene, and upgraded bike and ped crossing, as well as a new signal for the crossing on baseline. There'll be 1.4 miles of new sidewalk where it's currently missing throughout the project, and all sidewalks will be brought up to ADA standards with directional ramps. We'll also include wayfinding signage, as this will be part of the Handlebars Bike Boulevard route, and we'll also include landscape and lighting. Next slide. So the project links many important activity centers and current bike paths and lanes. So this will be added on as part of the Bike Boulevards route, which is a low stress bike routes throughout the city. It'll link Kiwanis Park, the Western Canal, multi-use paths, Clark and Dwight Parks, downtown Tempe, ASU campus, and will cross the Almeida Streetscape project, which is currently in construction, that will also feature a pedestrian bridge crossing over the I-10. Next slide. So here's the overview of our Tempe Bike Boulevard routes. These are the low stress routes going east, west, and north, south throughout the city. The red route there is the handlebars route, which is the westernmost north-south route through the city. The dotted black line shows the current alignment along Hardy up from baseline, and the new red line to the right of that shows how this project will amend that route and provide for protected and buffered bike lanes along the Handlebars Bike-It Boulevard in the future. It'll also include the wayfinding signage, as you can see there, for handlebars. Next slide. So next, we're going to walk through the various cross sections from the project, starting at the north end going south. And these are just preliminary 30% design plans. So let's start at Farmer and University. Going down Farmer, there will be little to no change, as there currently is streetscape and traffic calming already on Farmer, and continuing down to 13th, it's pretty similar. We will be adding sidewalk improvements to upgrade to ADA standards. And that brings us over to Roosevelt. Next slide. So on Roosevelt, where the main improvements begin, the project proposes to eliminate the middle left turn lane and add 5-foot buffers for the bike lanes, as well as adding a raised channelization device, which you can see at the bottom right. So that will provide for fully protected and buffered bike lanes along this route, similar to the original intent of the project. The area here on the right, you can see there is no sidewalk as well. So this portion of Roosevelt will be upgraded to have full ADA compliant sidewalks on both sides. And as you can see in that picture on the right, there is a community art project for the standpipe, and it's gonna hand it over to our consultant from Kimley Horn to talk a little bit about that.
All right, thank you, Lyle. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, as Lyle mentioned, and you can see in the image here in your upper right of the screen, we have an irrigation structure with an artwork application. As he mentioned, also, we will be providing new sidewalk along here for ADA compliance. So we've got a little bit of a conflict here. This artwork was provided through a neighborhood grant, and the community was very involved. So we're paying special attention to our improvements here. Fortunately, with the addition of the sidewalk, we only need to relocate this structure about 10 feet back into the alley just a bit. So it'll still be very visible from the public view, and we're doing so, or providing methods for doing so, to keep the artwork intact. So we're working very closely with the city on the relocation process. We're also working closely with the original artist to make sure that the artwork stays intact post the project improvements.
Thank you, and yep, so continuing down Roosevelt, we'll move on to the next slide. South of Broadway, continuing to Southern, there will be proposed buffers, 2-foot to 3-foot buffers with the raised channelization device where possible. There's a good amount of area where the road narrows and the buffer will go away for a little ways, but wherever possible, the plan proposes buffered and protected bike lanes. Also, there at the very north of that section, just south of Broadway, we will be proposing to eliminate the middle turn lane as well, to provide for those buffered and protected bike lanes. The bottom left picture there is actually a picture of the Alameda Streetscape project, which is currently in construction. And this section of the project will intersect directly with Alameda there. And that's facing west, where once that's completed, you'll be able to continue down there and cross on a pedestrian bridge over the I-10. Next slide. All right, and continuing down, this is the Dwight Park connection I had mentioned before. Below Southern Avenue, there will be sharrows to continue down towards the park. You can see in the top left there, the signal is the Southern Crossing, and it continues down into Dwight Park, and we'll cut across a proposed 10-foot multi-use path through the park over to Manhattan Drive, and see that on the next slide. The top left image here shows the current proposal for that multi-use path through the park. From the top left is Roosevelt Street, and we'll cut over to Manhattan Drive on the right there. Just a few pictures of the park, and Manhattan Drive will also include sharrows and very wide lanes. From there, that is where we hit Kyrene Road. So Kyrene is a pretty special part of the project because it will include a fully protected two-way cycle track from Manhattan Drive all the way down to Baseline Road. The channelization device, raised device, will provide a protected bike lane, and there'll be a full 5-foot buffer there, as well as 6-foot bike lanes going each direction. You can see the cross section there on the bottom right. There's also a proposed new bike and pedestrian crossing at the end of the cycle track to cross over to Manhattan Drive. And then continuing south, that the cycle track will end at Baseline Road, and in that we have a couple of maps here. So in the bottom right photo there, you can see Kyrene coming down and jogging over to the right on that yellow line to the proposed ped crossing, and that will link directly to the Western Canal multi-use path. Currently, there is no bike or pedestrian link to that path, so this will provide a great connection to Southern Tempe. And the larger map there is just showing the various regional connections that this crucial crossing will allow bikes and pedestrians to access, continuing into Chandler, Mesa, and Phoenix. The top right there is an example of that proposed bike pedestrian crossing. Next slide. There's a larger version of the proposed crossing, and it will be located just beyond the railroad tracks and link directly into that entrance to the Western Canal Path and Kiwanis Park, shown on the top right. And next slide. So that covers the entire route. We're holding our first round of public meetings for this new alignment. Today is the online version at noon and in person at 6 p.m. down at Child's Play Theater, 900 South Mitchell Drive. The proposed schedule for the project will be to finish these 30% designs in July and move on to tackle the 100% design plans by June of next year. And anticipated start for construction will be December 2024. Next slide. And that about wraps up the summary for the project. So thank you for attending. The project URL there, tempe.gov handlebars will be live for 2 weeks for people to fill out the survey and provide additional comments online. And at this point, we'd like to open it up to questions from the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lyle. So we do have some questions already in the chat that I'll go ahead and read. And then if anyone has others, feel free to put them in there, or if you want to raise your hand, I can call on you as well. So the first question, Lyle, is where will the path be on Kyrene below Manhattan? In the right of way of Tempe Union Pacific Railroad or next to houses?
Yeah, thank you. That's
near Dwight.
On Kyrene below Manhattan will not include the Union Pacific right-of-way, but it will be on that east side of Kyrene adjacent to the railroad, and it will not be next to the houses on the west side.
Okay, the next question is asking about the transition from the Kyrene bike path to the baseline crossing.
Yep, so right in the bottom right there, as you're on the west side of Kyrene coming down south, it'll just be a concrete path on the north side of baseline that brings you over the railroad tracks and to the crossing.
And Alice, and then Kelly, I saw you also talked about going back to a baseline in Kyrene. Does that answer your questions or?
This
Yes.
is Alice. Can I talk, or is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, feel
So
free.
I'm wondering, and I see a couple of people have their hands up. So it looks to me like if you're riding a bike southbound on Kyrene, south of Manhattan, if I'm going south, I'm directly facing the northbound traffic. Am I understanding this view correctly?
So
But I have a buffer.
the bottom right cross section there shows the cycle track. So if you're riding south, you actually will not be on the west side of the road. You'll be on, yeah, like you said, the facing the northbound traffic, but there will be a full 5-foot buffer with physical barrier.
Okay. And then that next slide where you show the transition at baseline. So again, if I'm going south and then I'm going to go east, I'm on the, to me, according to the rules of riding a bike, I'm riding on the wrong side of the road on my bike until I get to the crosswalk. Is that again going to be a buffered area?
It'll be a multi-use path type connection.
Okay.
So yeah, there will be enough room for passing if necessary.
Well, okay.
When
So
necessary.
there will be that. Okay. So you're not going to be right in like the bike lane on baseline, I guess.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So we're going to go to Kelly and then Karen, and then I'll come back to the chat. Kelly, did you have something to Kyrene at baseline?
Yes, actually, you're on the perfect slide. Where you have the red X's, I often ride this. I used to go to a gym that's actually where the proposed pedestrian crossing is. We almost always get hit out of that mobile home park, but why are you just not making a connection on the canal system directly across? And maybe I misunderstood it or I missed that, but on the Western Canal, if you're heading south on that Western Canal on the other side of the mobile home park, why not just make a pedestrian crossing that connects right there and crosses right through? Because the proposal that you have right now, if you're coming down Hardy and you connect on Western Canal like we do, it's not, we're still going to have to ride on sidewalk where that red X is, the top red X, ride sidewalk all the way over just to get there. Do you understand what I'm saying or no?
Yeah. So I believe the intention is this project will be a bit better for cyclists with the buffered and protected bike lanes, lower stress. So that's why we are changing the bike it route to this section, and instead of going the other way, I believe that was looked into, but it would also involve crossing Kyrene, as well as just be a little more
Baseline, crossing baseline. If what I'm explaining doesn't make sense, I will come to the meeting and explain, and I will show you.
Yeah, I meant from the cycle track, you would have to cross Kyrene on the north side of baseline there, which wouldn't be optimal.
No, I'm saying where the top red X is, the top one, you're moving your cursor. So over there, we're coming south on that canal path, that Western Canal, we're coming south. So from the 60, when we cross the 60, we're heading south on Western Canal. You still have that whole stretch that we would have to ride on sidewalk in front of, do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like you don't.
I believe that was looked into. I don't know if Chase has more background on that.
Yeah, Lyle, you mind if I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
I think I'm understanding. Sorry, I'm the cursor guy.
It's a huge safety issue. Like, this doesn't
Yeah.
help anyone coming from Western Canal, period. From if you're heading from north to south, because when you come off a Hardy, you ride that Western Canal to connect through, you're still going to have to ride on that sidewalk, and every single time we almost get hit.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the scope of the project, unfortunately.
It's not the scope of the project. Okay.
So let me just jump in real quick here. So if I'm understanding correctly, it's this top red X and you're talking about
That is
making the
correct.
connection. So I think either way, we're going to be crossing a driveway. This was the direct path from the southern entrance to the Western Canal and would be closer to our the rest of our project corridor for this Kyrene bike ped improvement project. I think something that we can explore is continuing this 10-foot side path that we have here, continuing that west and potentially looking at driveway improvements as well to this driveway to provide for that connection along the north side to get to that pedestrian signal.
Well, yes, if you want cyclists to be safe, you would have to connect that. I mean, I can't tell you how many people ride that Western Canal portion on bikes and even people walking, but I would have to say out of 3 times, 2 out of 3 times, I will almost always get hit with people not looking. Even if we go to that stoplight, which is just west of that, which is not in the photo, it's still a very dangerous intersection. I guess from my perspective as a pedestrian and as a cyclist, where the red X's are, why don't you put in a pedestrian crossing there as well to make it safer, to slow down traffic in that area?
Yeah, so I think also another factor here, and I'm not sure if it's shown well in this photo, is that we have the Union Pacific crossing here, which is why the Western Canal on the south end is east of the Union Pacific Railroad at this location, rather than crossing and continuing along the Western Canal path to the west. So this provides that direct connection to the east here. So there's certain requirements too that we have with proximity of signals to other nearby signals,
Okay.
which is why this alternative here, providing the direct connection over on the south side of the Western Canal path, was selected. Either way, we were
But
encountering.
that still doesn't help the connection process of people on Western Canal on bikes getting over to that stretch safely.
Hey,
that-
Chase and Lyle, this is Eric. Can I just jump in here real quick?
Yeah,
Yep.
please.
Hey, I think it's Kelly that's talking. Kelly, I think I may have met you in one of the meetings we had with the mayor recently about Papago Park. I think that's your voice that I recognize, but
That is correct.
I appreciate your comments. And I'm, just so everyone knows, I'm Eric Iverson. I'm right now the interim Deputy Engineering and Transportation Director. And I can tell you, Kelly, we have looked at your question's a really good one about why can't we just have a connection, a pedestrian bike connection, connecting those 2 X's that are in that, on the screen there, crossing baseline. We have grappled with this for years. And what I would say is that essentially because of the railroad crossing, because of the adjacent driveways, because of the signal that you mentioned that's immediately west of that Western Canal crossing, we can't add an at-grade signalized crossing right there. It doesn't work traffic engineering wise. So we have to pursue grade separation, a bridge or an underpass. We have looked at that. That's upwards in the millions of tens of millions of dollars to do that. So it's a very large expense. You know that we've done other
That's a
grade
great
separation.
idea. You should totally do that.
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, it is, I think, you know, I don't want to speak for all of our staff, but I would say that I think that all of our staff support something like that. It's just, it's a huge challenge. There's also underground utility issues. You have the canal that's underground right there. So there's other, not just Tempe, other agencies that we'd have to work with to make that happen. It's something that we have looked at for years, something we'd like to do. We like hearing it from the public that that's something that they'd be interested in. We just can't afford it at this time. We do think that what we're doing here today with this project and what we've done with the Western Canal project that was completed about 10, 11, 12 years ago, that you're mentioning, that both of these projects are good enhancements. They're taking us in the right direction. They may not be the ultimate goal of where we'll land or where we want our bike pedestrian system to end up being. But we cannot at this point do a specific at grade bike ped connection across the Western Canal, linking those two red X's that you're identifying. So I think the point of on the north side of Baseline, that 10-foot wide sidewalk exploration to connect the Western Canal to this Kyrene, Roosevelt, Farmer path is a good one that we should look at. But
that sounds great. If that's really our only option in a budget sense, I mean, I understand that. I'm just saying logically, from my perspective, it would make sense to connect the two red arrows. But if that's a no-go financially and all the other reasons, then you definitely need something that connects the Western Canal to that pathway, just because it's cool.
Yeah.
That's all I have. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for the comment. And that is the truth right now. We do look in the future to be able to do more grade separated crossings here and elsewhere throughout the community. So thanks for that. Thanks for that comment.
Okay, Karen, you're next. Karen Adams.
Hi, this looks great, especially from where I live now, which is just off Roosevelt on 15th Street. So this will be a welcome addition to that area of Roosevelt. My only concern is not with the project itself, but with the fact that at Roosevelt and 13th Street and 13th Street and Farmer, while there are stop signs, I cannot tell you the number of people who do not stop. I have almost been sideswiped so many times I can hardly talk about it by cars who decide, there's only that one other car there, I'm just going to drive through. So I realize I don't know how you're going to handle this other than perhaps thinking about enforcement, but it's really, those corners tend to be dangerous, both for pedestrians and for bicyclists and for people in cars. So it's really something I think you need to think about. I mean, I realize this is an issue in the valley, people going through red lights, etc. But for people to truly be safe, people are going to have to be obeying those signs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say with the large buffered and protected bike lanes, it should add a large amount of traffic calming to at least that Roosevelt and 13th intersection, which should slow down traffic a lot more than it is now. So that should at least lessen that intersection. Thank you for the comment.
But it won't do anything about the Farmer, and people use 13th as a drive-through now, so without much concern about who they're driving through.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go to some questions in the chat, then we'll come back to our hands. So Lyle, the question or comment is, traffic on Baseline is very difficult. Will there be street lights to stop traffic? How will it affect car traffic? So maybe if you can explain how the
proposed signal will be a full signal for bikes and pedestrians that will stop traffic.
And then just to the second part of that, does it affect car traffic, or do you evaluate that when you look at the bike ped signals?
It, as they were alluding to earlier, it does fit within the standards for signal far enough away from the other ones, so it fits in with the traffic plans for this area.
Thank you. The next one, the yellow buffers you were displaying earlier, I noticed a hole in them. Does that mean vertical poles will be inserted into there, making the buffers more visible to cars and trucks?
So right now in just the 30% plans, those are not included, but there's certainly something we are weighing in the future to be a part of this plan. It kind of depends on a few other moving parts within the city, such as the Scottsdale Road project, which we are proposing those, both the vertical delineators in the vertical curb. So depending on a few things, we will certainly be looking into that for this project. Hopefully in the next round of public meetings, we'll have more for you on that in the spring next year or fall of this year.
Okay, thank you, Lyle. Next question, the chicanes on Farmer are currently dangerous for cyclists as they force cyclists into the center of the road. Can they be modified to protect cyclists?
Yeah, so those are put there to slow down traffic to help cyclists, and there's also an issue with trash pickup on Farmer there. So even without the chicanes, it really wouldn't do much to help our project to put in, wouldn't be able to even fit much bike infrastructure either way. I think that is why they were originally planned. As to the lighting and landscaping, that just wasn't part of the 30% plan yet. But again, we will be proposing all the lighting and landscaping in the 60% plans, which will be the next round of public meetings. So thank you for that. We'll definitely look into that area.
Hey, and this is Eric again. I just want to add to what Lyle said, which was great. But state also that those, I think there was a comment in the chat. We will look at, as part of this project, some of the paint on the curbs of those chicanes and kind of like look at how those can be maybe called out a little bit more on Farmer so that they're very readily identifiable for folks traveling through there.
Yeah, Eric, this is Joe with Kimley Horn. Just to build on that, in addition to the striping, we're planning to put the reflectorized pavement marker bumpers on that curb as well to help increase the visibility of them at night, because we've heard there has been some cars hitting the curbs traveling at night. So those reflectorized bumpers and the paint on those curbs should help with that visibility.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
And so just as a follow-up to that, and Eric, it's probably what you referenced, but also just asking about low-level lighting in the chicanes, maybe using solar. I understand you're talking about reflective paint and other things so the chicanes are more visible, but are you looking at lighting?
We have not yet, because this first 30% plan didn't include looking into the lighting yet. But yeah, for the next section of the plan going to 60% plans, we certainly will.
Okay, and then Katie, you have your hand raised, and then we'll come back to the chat.
Yeah, I had, I guess, two questions. One, just north of Southern on Roosevelt, there's no sidewalk for a block or two. Will there'll be sidewalks added there?
Yes, that is a section that will have all new sidewalks. The whole section, the whole project will include full ADA standard sidewalks. So the entire stretch on Kyrene as well that doesn't have sidewalks, and those two sections of Roosevelt will all have new sidewalks. Yep.
Okay, so essentially where there's no sidewalks, there will be sidewalks
Yep.
on this project. Okay, and
then
then
we'll be upgrading any of the sidewalks that aren't to ADA standards throughout this whole route as well.
okay, and then I guess for the part on Kyrene, is it, maybe this is beyond the 30% plan, but is it possible to have steel reinforced bollards to protect the bike lane? I think those like little hump things aren't super protective personally. as a bike lane, and I know people speed a lot down Kyrene, so I think a real concrete bollard would be make it feel comfortable for a lot more people.
Hmm.
I guess that was more of a comment. So
Yeah, that's certainly something we can look into and talk through with the consultants and engineers in that section. But for right now, we are at least looking into certain different types of vertical aspects there. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
And Lyle, just before we go to the next question, one came up about the width of sidewalks. What is the width through the project?
I don't know, Anne, if you want to chime in about the ADA standards there, I believe it'll be 5 or 5.5 feet with passing lanes.
Yeah. So wherever we have missing sidewalk, we replace with 5-foot sidewalk. The only exception to that is along Kyrene. That is a 6-foot wide sidewalk on the east side. Where we have existing sidewalk, and this comes from a federal guideline, it's the existing sidewalk is 4 feet, so it does not currently meet ADA standards. But when there's the opportunity to add what are called passing spaces. So instead of trying to replace, miles and miles of new sidewalk with 5-foot sidewalk, what we do is we add sections that are at least 5 foot wide. And they're spaced no more than every 200 feet. So we call those passing spaces, and that does meet ADA requirements and gives people an opportunity that are walking in reverse orders to be able to pass each other.
Thank you.
So I'll go back to the chat, then we'll come back to hands. Well, I understand there are right-of-way constraints. Can we add landscaping, trees, shade where possible? Could the buffers be landscaped in certain locations?
Yeah, again, this 30% plan didn't include any landscaping. That's why none is shown, but we are going to be proposing landscaping throughout. So that will be proposed in the next round of public meetings.
Okay, thank you. And just so you guys know, when you signed in, you provided us an email, and if you take the survey and give us your email as well, we'll, in addition to postcards, whatever notices you got, we'll make sure you know when those next rounds are and you'll get invited. Next question, what are the plans for street sweeping? Roosevelt now has so much debris in the bike lane. Are there any plans to do more street sweeping? And will the sweepers fit in the new buffered lanes?
Yeah, the city is currently looking into that, as we have almost final plans for Scottsdale Road project that will include buffered and protected bike lanes. So the city is definitely on top of figuring out sweepers for those bike lanes.
Okay, and then a question on how it will affect the businesses on Roosevelt.
So the project should not affect the, I assume you're talking about that warehouse district area. The middle turn lane there will stay intact and will allow for plenty of room for truck traffic and any business traffic. And only for a small portion just south of Broadway will that middle turn lane be eliminated. It's less than a quarter mile there, and really before it gets into the warehouse area, right next to that new development park on Broadway.
Okay, then Nancy Egley, I saw you put your hand down. So if you wanted to say something, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to assume your question was answered. Question, comment. I share all of Kelly Marie's concerns about the designs of dangers, of north-south travel on Western Canal across Baseline. Riding on the sidewalk is sketchy in either direction there, so the existing traffic signal doesn't help cyclists. Creating a wide multi-use path on the north side to connect the canal to Kyrene would be a big help, though I would love to have an overpass.
Yep.
And then just more thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Lyle.
Yeah, as Eric said before, we all generally share that view, and it's just a very tricky area. And this project was originally the rail spur project, so kind of focusing on that area over there, but we will be continuing to look in that connection. That's definitely a good comment.
So I'm not seeing any more hands or questions in the chat. We do still have some time here. If anyone does have any, we're happy to stay on and answer all of those. If not, I did put the comment link again in the chat. You have through May 2nd to give comments, and then the recording of this meeting as well as the presentation will be posted online soon. So you can also, if you want to kind of zoom in or get in more details, we'll have that too. And so, yeah, so Kelly Marie is asking for the connection to the plan. So yeah, we'll have all that online.
Or
Or are
think
we
she was
asking about a
saying,
different connection? I'm sorry. Yes,
yeah,
that Lyle was just mentioning.
can we
I'm
add,
talking about the connection, Western
Yeah.
Canal. Yeah.
we can look into that. It's probably a fair amount for this project, as we've already deferred federal funds multiple years to make this project happen, and as you know, costs have gone up a lot in those years. So we'll be aware of that and certainly do our best. But maybe instead of the at grade or below or above grade crossing, we can at least look into some sidewalk improvements there. I'll certainly look into it.
Kelly's offering herself up as labor, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Lyle, anything else to close us out?
No, I think that's about it. And we're just really excited to get some more protected and buffered bike lanes in the city.
Okay, and then Steffi's asking about the dates. Do you have the next step slide, the one right before Chase?
Yeah, we're hoping to come back to the public with 60% plans by the end of this year. And then be finished with the full design by the middle of next year to construct December 2024, begin construction.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.